Good evening, everybody. Oh my god, what a day it's been. Do you ever get a feeling when it's the end of the working day and all of a sudden you just have this massive slump of energy, like you just want to bloody collapse all of a sudden, not because you want to, but because your body feels like it's shutting down. Oh, and another thing that I forgot over the weekend as well, all this. Time for the old snip methinks. But of course you didn't come here to find out whether my bonnet's going or my energy's running out. So why don't we just get right down to business. The Public and Commercial Services Union has come out, apparently, saying they're helping to hold a counter-protest against Tommy Robinson on the 27th of July, or in short, the PCS. Speaking of the 27th of July, I've had a little hiccup with the plans. So the guy who took me over to Brummie is unable to also take me down there this time, so I'm gonna have to do it off my own pocket. No biggie, it just means I have to pay for my ticket, that's all. And if I did it before with the 1st of June, no reason why I can't do it again, even if my money is tight. But back to the PCS, which I could call them POS, as in pieces of shit, but I digress. They've also put an article out on their own damn website, the PCS, basically calling Tommy the usual buzzwords. You know, the typical ones that the NPCs love to throw out, like fascist, Islamophobe, racist, far right, etc., etc. Just the usual spiel from another group of NPCs who want to make a name for themselves but never will. But then I guess the clue really is in the name. Public and Commercial Services Union. And while I may be speculating at this particular point, I suspect there are another group of big toffee-nosed snotheads basically trying to get some political point scoring done by going after the supposed far right and Tommy Robinson. We also see hit pieces from parties like the Socialist Workers' Party, who again call him a Nazi, a fascist, far right, and all the usual crap. But then anybody who's followed Tommy Robinson for any period of time will know this isn't really new news. I will admire the left on one thing though. They definitely are consistently wrong on almost everything they say. If he was truly Islamophobic, then he wouldn't have any Muslim friends helping him out with this 27th of July rally, would he? And if he was truly Islamophobic, and you can't be racist because you can't be racist against a religion, he would be saying that all Muslims are like this, when he knows that's not the case. But let's face it, the mainstream media don't want to tell us this, because anything that portrays Tommy Robinson in even a slightly good light is bad news for the media. And is it a coincidence a cop car has gone by? Anyway, is it a coincidence though, more than anything, that the media won't report anything positive on Tommy? Of course not. Because at the BBC, Sly News, Channel 4, etc., etc., their objective isn't to credit Tommy Robinson, it's to demonise and discredit him. It is to maliciously target the man and say libelous, slanderous things about him, even though they know damn well it's not true. But you know what, that's fine. That is absolutely fine. If the mainstream media want to play that game, we'll have a fun time naming and shaming every one of those traitors back on the 27th of July. Because at the end of the day, it is the job of the mainstream media to report the truth without political bias. It's about telling us what is going on in the world with no, well, he's in the wrong because I said so nonsense. And I know there's probably going to be somebody typing in the comments, well, you're a hypocrite because you have bias against the media. Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is important. It shouldn't be my job to report the news truthfully. Be truthful maybe, but report the stuff that the mainstream media should report. If I can get the words out. I'll get there eventually. But it shouldn't be my job to report on stuff the mainstream media should be reporting on, truthfully. And I'm probably sure there's a few more strokes to come. Anyway, it shouldn't be my job to do what the media's doing. Or should be doing, I should say. Likewise, it shouldn't be down to people like Tommy Robinson, Maya Toosey, Paul Thorpe, Xpaz49, Andy the Gabby Cabby, Lawrence Fox, just to name a few. It shouldn't be down to them, or people like me, to do the job of the mainstream media. And as said, the job that they should be doing. Therefore, I will be going out of my way to find out who's making what articles, what kind of stuff is in there, and if they report anything other than the truth, if they report anything that is libelous or slanderous against us, I'll be naming and shaming them. Every fucking one of them. That's my solemn vow right now. If they do any of this nonsense, I will go through hell and high water to find out the names and the publishers and the mainstream media outlets of every single falsehood of media coverage that they put out. Every single one. So if anybody in the mainstream media is listening to this, my message to you directly: you better report this thing impartially, without bias, and without libelously slandering a group of people. Because last time I checked, to deliberately misrepresent a person or group of persons, isn't that against Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act? Fraud by false representation? But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. It is fraud by false representation if they are willfully lying and falsely representing people or a person of whatever it is they're doing. In this case, it would be false to represent the people that are going up to that protest, to label them as far right. We are not far right. We are patriots who are concerned with the way this country is run. We're concerned about the safety of our families, and we're concerned about the well-being of our own damn country. The same country that these NPCs in the left wing and our corrupt establishment of traitors, they seem to be more interested in destroying that. And bear in mind as well, it is, as I said, libel and slander. Libelous, slanderous remarks. If any of them try to say that we are far right, because nothing could be further from the truth. Do they not realise how damaging that kind of shit could be towards an ordinary person like myself? And I have been dismissed twice for my political views, which I was not inciting hatred, I was not inciting terrorism, although one of the people up at one of the jobs was trying to say I was a racist. Nothing of the sort. But of course they tried to do that because you know what the lefties are like. They're all a bunch of NPCs at the end of the day. Don't know what they're talking about, don't do their research, and they don't realise how far from the truth they really are. It pisses me off when I see mainstream media outlets, and now of course organisations like the Public and Commercial Services Union or the Socialist Worker Parties, who are going out of their way to put on their websites all their party articles, news, whatever, that Tommy Robinson is a Nazi, a racist, an Islamophobe, and nothing I said could be further from the truth. And here's the thing as well, I've mentioned it many, many times, and I will say it here again, there is no such thing as Islamophobia. Islamophobia would imply there is an irrational fear of Muslims. It is not Muslims that people have a problem with. It is the ideology, the extremist ideology of radical, hardline Sunni Islam, which is something, of course, the mainstream media don't want to tell you about, because they know damn well people like me are speaking the truth on this. They know full well that Sunni Islam is completely incompatible with Western society and Western values. Yet, they're going out of their way to protect the extremists and libelously slander British people. I'll be dealing with Hoodlum in a minute. Anyway, they are going out of their way to target us for being concerned about what illegal immigrants are doing to our country. And it's as I said in one of my live streams, if you import people from third world shitholes, don't be surprised if they try to turn our country into a third world shithole themselves. This is what your diversity, inclusion and strength or equality or whatever, the DEI, this is what your DEI has gotten you, folks. It has gotten us a divided country with no equal rights and is only inclusive of Islam, a death cult. And the only way we're going to solve this issue is if we push back against the traitors in the establishment who are constantly pushing this multicultural bullshit down our throats and expecting us to like it. It's the cold, bitter truth that nobody wants to admit. And sadly, here in liberal Norwich, there are going to be few people who are able to say it as it is, like I am. Because I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, I'm not going to mince my words, and I will do my absolute damnedest not to bullshit you. And as I've clearly showcased times in the past, I'll admit a mistake when I make it. That's the thing about me. I don't have the... how do I put it? I don't have the mentality, shall we say, of the NPCs in the mainstream media of, oh, well, we're not telling the truth, let's double down on that further. Because here's the thing, I don't want my country falling to radical Islam. I don't want a caliphate imposed in my country. I don't want to see Islam try to impose Sharia law on us. I don't want to see illegal immigrants continue to run amok in this country. Because let's face it, that's exactly what's happening right now. And a lot of the mainstream media and the left wing will not admit that. Because they know damn well that is the truth. And that if ordinary sheeple realise this, there's going to be rebellions on their hands. I guess the truth of the matter is, I'm hoping that some of this stuff, if I keep repeating this shit, eventually it's going to sink into people's heads. Much like how the brainwashing of the mainstream media, they hope if they keep on saying the same stuff, like far right and racist and Islamophobe, they're hoping at the end of the day that enough people will listen to that and then start to sign on to the mainstream narrative, even though it might be false, as is the case almost always is with them as far as Tommy Robinson is concerned. But of course they will never admit what they're doing. Just like the Public and Commercial Services Union will never admit what they're doing is libelous and slanderous. Same with the Socialist Workers' Party. Same with all those NPCs who've gone out of their way to attack Tommy with this libelous slander. People don't want to admit the truth. And even more so, they don't want to admit the mistakes they're making, because it would showcase these people for what they truly are. Liars, snakes, traitors. And Keir Starmer is the biggest traitor of the lot of them, who isn't going to do a damn thing to this country other than sink it even faster. What we need to do, as I've said, any media outlet or any newspaper rag that tries to spread complete misinformation about who we are, what we're doing, and what we stand for, the libelous, slanderous remarks they make, we need to name and shame every single media outlet that does this. Every single one. And the names of the individuals publishing the articles themselves. Someone has to hold these people to account. Because if we don't, they will keep doing this. If we don't take serious action against them, legally, I mean, not violence, if we take the legal action needed against them, oh, they'll stop real quick, let me tell you, because they won't be able to win this many cases. Even the BBC would not be able to hold out this long. Bear in mind, that they've received, I think it was like £600,000, or was it 600 million euros? I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, of funding from the European Union. That should tell you the kinds of people we're up against. People who are basically paid to spin a yarn that they're hoping will be good enough. But you're not pulling the wool over our eyes, mainstream media. The only thing you're doing is making it more and more obvious that your intentions are malicious and intentions of brainwashing are made apparent. Whereas people like myself, I treat people as if they are adults. I treat them as if they're capable of thinking for themselves. I treat them as if they are people who essentially need to understand what kind of world we're living in. I'm not sitting here trying to spin a yarn so that people will take on what I say and I can turn them into cult members. Or, I guess the most accurate way to put it is the army of the left wing. And I think at this point, as I said, people like Tommy Robinson need to take the mainstream media to task over this. Because if they're going to keep libelously slandering him and people like me and people like you, then we need someone who is going to stand up and say, you know what, we're not going to let you get away with this. That's what we need to do. Because that's the only way they're going to stop. Because believe it or not, money talks. Money gives power. And if we take away the establishment's money, the mainstream media's money, the NPCs and the left wing's money, what do you think they're going to be able to do then? They're committing lawfare against Tommy Robinson. Why don't we give them a taste of their own medicine? Let's see how long they last if we start putting in cases of libel and slander against ordinary British people for maliciously labelling them as far right. Because I can assure you of this much, we are not far right. We are not far right at all. In fact, the only right we are is we're right so far. And they do damn well to remember that. Because if we start taking these people to court and get them to pay us compensation for their malicious remarks, I guarantee you, we'll win so much more quickly, because they won't have the money to do what they're doing now. We could very easily do to the mainstream media and the left wing what they're trying to do to Tommy Robinson. And I think that should scare them, quite frankly, because there's far more of us than there are of the establishment and the NPCs and the left. There's far more of us that can, with evidence and facts and truth on our side, take these people to task. And because of that, we can easily take out the trash and ensure that the right people are kept safe. And those who are crooked and corrupt will pay a heavy price for their libelous remarks against ordinary people of this country.